The twin suns of planet Vorther burned in the sky, casting a reddish glow across the rocky plains. Hundreds of aliens had gathered in a giant circle around a black stone platform. At the center of that platform stood something ancient and mysterious. A sword buried deep inside a dark crystal. It was not just any sword, it was the blade of judgment. It had been there for over 500 years, and no one had ever moved it even an inch. Tall warriors, powerful nobles, high priests, they had all tried. Some came with strength, some with magic, and some with technology, but no one could lift it. The sword rejected them all. It didn't matter if the one who tried was rich or powerful. The sword stayed cold and silent, like it was waiting for someone different. A huge armored beast from the Krulgon Empire stepped forward. He growled, roared, and smashed his fists into the ground before grabbing the sword with both hands. The crowd leaned in, holding their breath. Veins bulged on the warrior's neck as he pulled with all his strength, but nothing happened. Not even a shake. He screamed in rage and kicked the stone, but the sword didn't even blink. The crowd laughed, some shook their heads, others left in disappointment. The announcer sighed and said the same line he always did. The sword has chosen no one. Then something strange happened. A lone figure in a dust-covered cloak stepped into the arena. He wasn't big or strong, not covered in armor or glowing tech. He was just a human. People in the crowd looked confused. A human? From Earth? What's he doing here? Someone whispered, "They don't even have a seat in the council." Said another. The human walked slowly, looking at the sword with curious eyes. His name was Jack Mercer, and he wasn't a warrior. He was just a traveler passing through planets, searching for his missing brother. He didn't believe in legends or magic swords. He only came because he heard whispers, stories that the sword moved when a human walked near it last week. He didn't think much of it, but something inside him pushed him forward, like a pull from deep inside his chest. The guards tried to stop him. "This is sacred. You are not allowed." One shouted, but an old alien priest raised his hand, stopping the guards. "Let him try." The priest said softly, his eyes locked on Jack. "There is something unusual about him." Jack stepped onto the platform. The air felt heavy, and everything became quiet. Even the wind stopped. He slowly reached out and touched the sword's handle. The moment his fingers brushed against it, the sky darkened for a second. The crowd gasped. The blade began to glow. Faintly, but clearly, it shimmered with soft blue light, and the ground vibrated slightly. Everyone froze. That had never happened before. Not in 5 centuries. The old priest dropped too. One knee, eyes wide in wonder. "It reacted," he whispered. "The sword has never reacted to anyone." Jack quickly pulled his hand back, surprised and a little afraid. He looked at his palm, which now had a faint symbol glowing on the skin, a spiral of light. What does this mean?" he asked aloud, but no one answered. The sword's glow faded, and the silence returned. Whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. "Did you see that? The sword glowed. It chose him, or almost did." But not everyone was happy. In the shadows, high above the crowd, a cloaked figure watched with cold eyes. A general from the Galactic Syndicate, the secret rulers of many planets. He turned to his assistant and growled, "If that human is truly the one, eliminate him before he realizes it." Back at the platform, Jack stepped away slowly, confused and shaken. He didn't understand what had happened. He didn't want to be part of some prophecy or alien legend. He only wanted to find his brother. But the sword had reacted to him, and now everyone in the galaxy would know. Far beneath the surface of the planet, hidden in the ancient roots of the crystal stone, a sleeping eye slowly opened its eyes after 500 years of silence. Its first thought was clear and sharp. The human has come, and with that, the blade pulsed softly. For the first time in centuries, it had found something worth waking for. Jack Mercer walked through the narrow streets of Vorther's capital, his boots kicking up red dust with every step. Alien eyes followed him, some curious, some angry and some afraid. The news had spread faster than light. The human touched the sword, and it glowed. The sword moved for him. A new era is coming, but Jack didn't care about any of that. He only cared about one thing: his missing brother, Daniel, 6 months ago. Daniel disappeared while working with a trade convoy that crossed into restricted syndicate space. Jack had followed every broken signal, every whispered rumor. That's what brought him to this cursed planet. Not the sword, not destiny, and definitely not power. He found a small inn at the edge of the city and entered quietly inside. The air was thick with the scent of burning herbs and strange meat. Aliens of all shapes and colors filled the room, some drinking, some gambling, some arguing in strange languages. Jack took a seat in the corner, away from the noise, and pulled out a small photo. It showed him and Daniel as kids. Back when Earth still felt like home, he whispered, "Where are you, Dan?" A soft voice interrupted him. "You look tired, human." Jack looked up and saw an alien woman standing before him. She had golden skin that shimmered like metal and eyes that glowed faintly blue. She wore a dark cloak, and a crystal pendant hung from her neck. "I'm not interested," Jack muttered, trying to wave her off. But she didn't leave. "I saw the sword react to you," she said gently. "You don't even realize what you've awakened." Jack narrowed his eyes. "You were there?" She nodded, sitting down across from him without asking. "My name is Thalna, daughter of the Star Priest. But titles don't matter right now." Jack leaned back in his seat, annoyed but curious. "What do you want?" "I want to help you," she said, her voice calm. "And I want to understand why you could touch the blade." Jack chuckled. "Believe me, I don't know either. I didn't come here for that sword. I just followed a rumor that someone saw my brother being dragged through the outer sectors." Thalna's expression changed. "Your brother? Did he have eyes like yours? Deep brown? Carried a small earth sigil around his neck?" Jack leaned forward quickly, hope flashing in his eyes. "Yes, that's him. You saw him?" She nodded slowly. "I saw someone like that months ago. In the lower city prison cells. Syndicate territory." Jack stood up at once, fire in his eyes. "Take me there." But Thalna shook her head. "You can't just walk into Syndicate. Hands, they'll kill you. Ever since the sword glowed, they see you as a threat." Jack clenched his fists. "I don't care what they think. I'll find my brother." Thalna studied him for a moment, then said, "Then you must listen carefully. The sword is not just a weapon, it's a gate. A key to something far older than this galaxy. And far more dangerous." Jack frowned. "You sound like those old monks who speak in riddles." She smiled. "Maybe I am." Suddenly, the door to the inn flew open. A group of armored aliens stormed in, syndicate guards, eyes scanning the room. "Search every table. The human is here." One of them barked. Jack stood up, hand near his old plasma knife. But Thalna grabbed his arm. "No, there's a tunnel behind the bar. It leads into the ruins." Jack hesitated, but then nodded. The two slipped behind the bar as the guards pushed forward, throwing chairs aside. One guard spotted them and shouted, "There! They're escaping!" Jack and Thalna ran into the dark tunnel, the ground shaking above them. Old lights flickered on as they ran deeper underground. The path curved and twisted, made of old metal and glowing roots. Jack asked, "What is this place?" Thalna whispered, "This is where the sword was made, where its secrets were hidden long ago." As they descended into the unknown, the walls began to glow softly. Jack could hear something. A voice calling him, "Return, chosen one." He looked at Thalna, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. But that voice only speaks to the one the sword accepts." Jack swallowed hard. "I didn't come here to be anyone special, but the sword. It had other plans." Jack followed Thalna deeper into the ancient ruins beneath the city. The air grew colder, and the glowing vines along the walls pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. Every step echoed, every breath felt heavier. Jack's fingers brushed the hilt of his blade, Not the ancient sword, just his old earth-made plasma knife. It had saved him before, but now? It felt small, weak, like the rules of the world were shifting beneath his feet. Thalna walked ahead, silent but sure. She carried a small orb of light in her hand. It floated just above her palm, lighting the way. These tunnels, she said quietly, were built long before your Earth had cities, before most of our species had names. Jack looked around, amazed. Strange murals were carved into the walls. They showed creatures lifting stars, planets breaking apart, and a sword held high between them. One figure stood out, a tall being with human-like shape, holding the glowing blade. Jack asked, "That's the sword, isn't it?" Thalna nodded. "Yes, and you're walking its path now." They reached a huge circular door made of black stone. It had no handle, no panel, no lock, just silence. Jack stepped forward, unsure, but as his hand neared the stone, it pulsed. Once, then again, a voice echoed in the chamber. "Name yourself." Jack froze. He looked at Thalna, who nodded once. "Say your name, it will judge you." He spoke clearly. "Jack Mercer, from Earth." The stone lit up with blue light, forming glowing symbols in a spiral. Then it spoke again. "Not of royal blood, not of ancient seed, and yet." "You heard me." Suddenly, the door cracked down the middle and slid open with a low growl. A long dark hallway appeared beyond, filled with mist and silence. Thalna whispered, "This is the trial of the chosen. Once you enter, I cannot follow." Jack turned sharply. "Wait, what? You're not coming?" She shook her head. "These trials are only for the one the sword reacts to. If you fail, the path closes forever." Jack clenched his jaw, took a deep breath, and stepped into the mist. The door sealed behind him with a boom, cutting off all sound. Now he was alone. The hallway changed as he walked. First, it showed him memories. Earth, his parents, Daniel's laughter. The night Daniel vanished. Then it twisted, showing images of war, screams, fire. He saw himself holding the ancient sword, covered in blood, his eyes dark, cold. He staggered, whispering, "That's not me." A voice answered in the mist, "Then prove it." The first trial began. A bright light flashed, and Jack stood in a small chamber. A force field separated him from two people, Thalna and a young child. A countdown began. 10, 9, 8. A voice said, "You can only save one. The other will vanish forever." Jack's heart raced. He ran toward Thalna, but stopped halfway, then toward the child, but froze again. He screamed, "This isn't real." But the clock ticked. 5, 4. He shut his eyes and shouted, "I refuse to choose." Everything blinked out, and the voice said, "Compassion." Confirmed. Then came the second trial. Jack was thrown into a battlefield. Alien creatures ran past him. His brother Daniel lay wounded, calling out to him, but the voice whispered, "Your brother is a lie. This is a trap. Save him, and your body dies here." Jack's heart ached. It looked so real, but he remembered Daniel's voice. And this one didn't sound right. He raised his blade, pointed it at the figure. "I don't know what you are, but you're not him." The illusion shattered like glass, and the chamber went dark again. Wisdom. Confirmed. Finally, the last trial. A mirror appeared in front of him. Inside it, Jack saw himself, but not as he was. He was older, powerful, with armies behind him, planets bowing before his feet. "Take the sword fully," the voice said. "Rule them all. They will obey." Jack stared at the image, tempted, but then he remembered his brother, the slave colonies he passed, the broken children he'd seen across planets. "I don't want to rule," he said quietly. "I want to protect and find my family." The image faded, and the voice returned one last time. "You are the unlikely one. The sword accepts." Suddenly, the walls glowed. Blue light spiraled upward, and the floor opened below him. He fell slowly, like floating in a dream, and when he landed, he stood once again in front of the stone. Sword still buried deep, waiting. aliens gathered again. Silent and tense, Thalna stood nearby, her eyes wide in shock. Jack stepped forward, his hand glowing faintly. No fear, no greed, no anger in his heart, only clarity. He reached for the sword again, and this time it moved. The entire arena was silent, not a whisper, not a breath. Thousands of alien soldiers, nobles, traitors, and travelers stood frozen, all eyes locked on the human standing before the ancient sword. For centuries, it had rejected all who touched it, but now it pulsed with light. Because of him, Jack Mercer's fingers closed gently around the hilt. It was warm, alive somehow, like it was breathing with him. Energy hummed beneath his skin. He wasn't sure what he was about to do. He just knew he had to try. The ground rumbled softly, a low vibration that grew stronger with every second. The sword glowed brighter, the stone around it cracked, and then, with a single, slow breath, Jack lifted it. The black crystal that held the blade for 500 years shattered like glass. A wave of energy exploded outward in a blue shockwave. It swept through the crowd like a silent wind. No one was hurt, but no one remained standing. Every alien in the arena fell to their knees, not because they wanted to, but because something greater had passed through them. In the sky above, clouds spun in perfect circles. Lightning split the horizon, not from weather, but from ancient systems reawakening. The sword now hovered above Jack's hand, spinning slowly, glowing brighter than any star. Symbols danced around it in the air, symbols from no known language, but somehow Jack understood them. He wasn't holding a weapon, he was holding a key. Thalna stepped closer, her voice shaking. I don't believe it, she whispered. It's responding to you like you were built for it. Jack turned slowly to face her. His eyes had changed, faintly glowing, like starlight rested behind them. But his voice was still his own, calm and steady. I don't want to be anyone's king, he said quietly. I just want to find my brother. But the sword had other ideas. It spun once in the air, then dropped back into Jack's hand, now smaller, more refined, as if adapting to his grip. As he held it, his mind flooded with images, visions of other worlds, locked doors, lost civilizations, and ships, warships, massive, terrifying, built around the sword's power long ago and lost to time. The ground cracked again as an ancient platform rose beneath Jack's feet, lifting him slowly into the air. Everyone watched in awe and fear. High above, giant floating screens lit up across the city, broadcasting his image to the galaxy. The council tried to block the transmission. They failed on dozens of worlds. Millions watched in silence. Aliens from every species stared at their screens. Some whispered, some wept, some screamed. The sword has chosen a human, an outsider. In a command ship deep in Syndicate territory, a general slammed his fist against the control panel. Cut the feed. Send the death squads, kill him before he unites them. But it was too late. The symbol now marked in the sky could not be erased. Back on Vorther, Jack descended back to the stone floor. As soon as his feet touched the ground, the sword dimmed silent again. But every alien could feel it. It wasn't asleep, it was simply waiting for his command. Thalna stepped forward slowly, her voice soft. There's no doubt anymore. You are the sword bearer. Jack looked around at the crowd. Some bowed, some looked afraid, some began chanting his name. He didn't smile, he didn't feel pride. He felt pressure, weight, like a door had opened, and there was no going back. He turned to Thalna and whispered, if I'm holding this, I need to use it for something more than ceremony. I need to find Daniel. But before she could answer, a massive horn blew in the sky. Everyone turned. High above the mountains, black ships appeared, blocky, spiked, glowing red. Syndicate warships. Thalna's eyes widened. They came faster than I thought. Jack raised the sword instinctively, the blade hummed, responding to his emotion, his fear, his resolve. And as the first enemy ship began to descend, The sword fired a bolt of light into the sky. It hit the ship's underside, slicing through the armor like paper. The ship exploded in the sky, pieces raining down like fire. The crowd screamed, ducked, and scattered. But Jack stood tall, the sword glowing like a star in his hand. No training, no plan, no strategy, just instinct. The voice inside his head spoke again. You're not a warrior, but you will become one. Smoke curled above the city of Vorthur. The Syndicate warship had been destroyed by a single swing of the sword. The explosion still echoed in the minds of the people. They had seen a miracle, but the Syndicate saw only a threat in the skies. Above, more black ships appeared, dozens, maybe hundreds. They moved in silence, blocking the twin suns, casting shadows across the planet. Thalna looked up, her face pale. They sent the Death Fleet, she whispered. They're not here to fight, Jack. They're here to erase. Jack didn't respond. He stood at the edge of the cliff, holding the glowing sword in both hands. Its light pulsed slowly, calm but alert. He could feel something inside the blade, something alive, watching with him. I didn't ask for any of this, Jack said quietly. But I won't run either. Thalna touched his shoulder. You don't need to be a hero, she said. You just need to survive. Below them, the city started to panic. Syndicate drones flew over the streets, scanning, searching, marking targets. Loudspeakers in every district echoed cold orders. Surrender the human, or perish with him. In the Capitol Palace, the council screamed at each other, give him up. One shouted, we can't. Another yelled back, the sword chose him. If we betray him, we betray the galaxy. But the Syndicate didn't wait for politics. They launched the first strike. Explosions ripped through the outer walls, screaming. Civilians ran for cover. Alien defenders fought back, but their weapons barely scratched Syndicate armor. Jack and Thalna raced down into the city, past wounded soldiers and burning machines. This way. Thalna pointed. There's an old forge. It can awaken the sword's deeper powers. As they ran, a strange sound echoed from above. Jack looked up and saw a shape falling now. Leaping, a Syndicate assassin, cloaked in black, landed in front of him, blades drawn. Its voice was metallic, emotionless. You do not belong. Jack raised the sword, unsure, untrained, but firm. The assassin lunged fast. Silent, deadly, Jack moved to block, and the sword moved with him on its own. A flash of blue light, and the assassin's blade shattered. The sword twisted in Jack's hand and struck the enemy across the chest. The assassin dropped lifeless. Jack stood, breathing hard, staring at the sword. I didn't even think. It just moved. The sword glowed brighter. I will protect if you choose to protect. The voice echoed in his mind. They reached the ancient forge hidden inside a mountain cave. The place pulsed with old power. Veins of glowing crystal lined the walls. Thalna ran her hand along a control panel. This forge was built by the first Guardians, she said. It will unlock the sword's next form, but it needs your will to shape it. Jack stepped forward and placed the sword onto the stone altar. A sudden flash blinded him. Visions poured into his mind. Worlds falling to the Syndicate, children crying in the ashes, but also people rising, humans and aliens standing side by side, fighting back, surviving. He opened his eyes. The sword was gone, melted into liquid light, floating above the altar. Then it reformed, sleeker, sharper, more dangerous. Not just a blade, but a symbol. Jack picked it up again. It felt lighter, faster, stronger. He didn't feel like a traveler anymore. He felt like someone the galaxy needed. Suddenly, the cave shook. Syndicate forces had found them. Dropships landed outside, engines roaring. Soldiers pouring out. Thalna looked at Jack. We fight or we die. Jack nodded, gripping the reforged sword. Then we fight. They rushed out together, facing a small army. Blaster fire filled the air. Jack spun through it, the sword moving faster than any eye could follow. The blade cut through armor like cloth, deflecting shots with blinding speed. The more he fought, the more the sword responded. Not just to his hands, but to his heart. The soldiers began to fall back, shocked by what they saw. Some dropped their weapons and ran. Others knelt, afraid, not of the sword, but of the man holding it. From the sky above, the Syndicate's high commander watched. A monstrous creature, half machine, half living shadow. It stared down at the human, eyes glowing red. "Enough of this," it growled. "Send the obliterator." A massive shape began to descend through the clouds 20 stories tall. A mech beast of pure destruction. Its arrival shook the entire planet, and in that moment, Jack knew this battle had just begun. Asterisk smoke still rose from the battlefield as the dust settled. The Syndicate's forces had been pushed back, for now Jack stood on cracked stone, his chest rising and falling. His sword dripped with strange, glowing fluid. His armor was scorched, his face cut, but he was alive. Thalna walked beside him, silent and watchful, and across the war-torn city, the people whispered, "He's the one." The sword-bearer. The human who fights like fire. But deep within the ruins of the Capitol Tower, someone watched from the shadows. General Corran, a trusted leader of the Planetary Guard. An alien with silver skin and violet eyes. He had sworn loyalty to the Council and now bowed to Jack, but inside his chest burned something dangerous. Jealousy. Corran gritted his teeth as he watched Jack through a cracked monitor. "Why him?" he whispered to himself. "I trained for decades, bled for this planet. And now they cheer for a stranger with a glowing toy." He turned to his secret communicator and tapped in a forbiddance code. A hologram appeared, flickering, crackling. It was a Syndicate warlord, face hidden behind red mist. "You called us," the voice said coldly. Corran's eyes narrowed. "I'll give you the human, but I want the sword." Meanwhile, Jack was preparing for his next move. The sword had shown him something, a city buried beneath the surface of Vorthur, a place filled with technology left behind by the first Guardians. Thalna said it might hold answers, or even the truth about Daniel, his brother. Jack stood with Thalna, Corran, and a few hand-picked fighters inside the war room. He placed a map on the table and pointed. "This tunnel leads below, beneath the mountain caves. If the Syndicate finds it first, they'll destroy whatever is down there." Corran nodded politely, but his mind raced. "He doesn't know I already sold the coordinates. Let him walk into their trap." Corrine smiled and said, "I'll lead your strike team." "Swordbearer." Jack nodded, grateful. "Good. We move before nightfall." Hours later, under cover of darkness, the group entered the underground tunnels. The walls were smooth, lined with ancient machines that sparked to life as Jack passed. Symbols glowed along the ceiling, language lost to all but the sword. Thalna translated what she could. "Those who hold the blade hold the gate," she whispered, "but beware the echo within." Jack frowned. "What does that mean?" Thalna looked uneasy. "I don't know, but it sounds like a warning." They reached the core chamber, a giant metal sphere hovering in the air. Inside it, an energy signal, something faint. "Human." Jack's heart skipped. "It's Daniel," he said. "I can feel it." Then came the sound, metal boots on stone, charging weapons, growling commands. Syndicate troops poured into the chamber from hidden passages. Dozens of them, armed and ready. Jack turned, eyes wide. "How?" Corran stepped forward slowly, drawing his blade. He didn't hide anymore. His voice was bitter and proud. "You don't deserve the sword," he growled. "You don't deserve their loyalty, or their cheers." Thalna stepped between them. "Furious, you betrayed us," she spat. Corran shrugged. "I gave them what they wanted you, Jack. In return, I get peace power. And the sword, once they're done with you." The Syndicate leader stepped into the light. Armored like a walking tank, he pointed at Jack. "Kill the human, take the sword." Everything moved at once. Blasters fired, walls shook, and shadows danced. Jack spun, blocking shots with the sword, slashing through soldiers. The weapon moved like it had a mind-cutting, shielding, guiding. Thalna fought beside him, moving like wind through flame. But there were too many. Even with all their skill, they were outnumbered, cornered, and wounded. Jack turned to face Coran, their blades clashing in the chaos. "You could have stood with me," Jack said. "I stood before you, and they never saw me," Coran hissed. "They will now." Their battle was brutal, clash after clash, the cave echoing with light and fire. But the sword knew its true master. It broke Coran's blade clean in half. Jack knocked him down, standing over him. Breathing hard. "Do it," Coran growled. "Finish it." Jack raised the sword, then lowered it. "No," Jack said softly. "That's not who I am." Suddenly, the core sphere above them pulsed, reacting to the sword's energy and the choice Jack had made. A secret panel opened, revealing a pod inside, frozen, suspended. "Alive, Daniel," Jack gasped, running to the pod. His brother's eyes slowly opened, weak. But alive, behind him, the remaining Syndicate soldiers retreated, confused and scattered. The sword had won again, without needing more death. Thalna knelt beside Jack and whispered, "The sword didn't just choose you for strength. It chose you for mercy." Daniel's eyes blinked open, weak and slow. His face was pale, his lips cracked. But Jack knew that look. He knew it from 1,000 memories back on Earth. That was his brother. He was alive. Jack fell to his knees beside the cryopod. "Dan." "It's me," he said softly. "I found you." Daniel tried to speak, but only air came out. Thalna gently activated the pod's recovery sequence, and warm light wrapped around Daniel's body. "His vitals are stable," she whispered. "He just needs time." Jack looked around at the ruins, the broken Syndicate weapons, the frightened soldiers who had retreated into the dark, and then, at the sword in his hand, the blade had stopped glowing, but he could still feel its heartbeat, soft, steady, like it was waiting for his next choice. He had done what he came for. He found his brother. But something had changed above ground. The city burned in places, but the people still stood. Aliens of every race gathered in the streets, not to fight, but to watch. The sky shimmered with dawn light as Jack carried Daniel up the mountain path. Beside him, Thalna walked silently, her eyes on the horizon. Behind them, refugees and warriors followed. No one gave orders, but everyone followed. The man who held the sword, at the summit, a tall spire, stood an ancient signal tower long dead. Jack placed Daniel down on a blanket, resting him against warm stone. Then he walked to the edge, where the wind screamed across the cliffs, and raised the sword high. The blade ignited, no longer blue. Now it shimmered with gold, like the first light of a newborn star, all across Vorthur. Lights came on, ancient machines awakening, old systems reactivating, satellites locked onto the signal, broadcasting Jack's image galaxy-wide, from council chambers to distant slave colonies, from pirates to prisoners. They all watched the same thing, a human holding a sword that had waited 500 years. A human who had no throne, no army, no bloodline, only heart. Jack spoke. His voice echoed through speakers, networks, minds. "I didn't ask to hold this sword. I didn't come to rule or to conquer. I came to find my brother. And I found something greater." He looked down at the cities below. "You were told humans are weak. You were told we are primitive, small, forgettable." He lifted the sword again. But today, one human lifted what all others failed to touch. "The Syndicate rules with fear," he said, his voice rising. "But fear ends today." Then came the roar, thousands of voices from the cliffs, the valleys, the rooftops, cheering, crying, screaming his name, Swordbearer, Jack of Earth, the human flame. Even in deep space, Syndicate warships paused. Commanders hesitated. Soldiers looked at each other, not with orders, but with questions. Can we beat this? Back on Vorthur, General Coran stood in chains, silent and bitter. He watched Jack and, for a moment, his hatred cracked. Maybe I was wrong, he thought. Maybe the sword knew something we didn't. Thalna stepped beside Jack. "You changed something today," she said. Jack looked at her, tired but steady. "No. We did. She smiled. So what now? Jack stared at the glowing blade. I return the sword, he said. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to whoever needs it next. He walked to the spire's base where an ancient pedestal stood. With both hands, he set the sword down, its light slowly dimming but never dying. It shimmered one last time, then sealed itself inside the stone. Waiting again, Jack turned and walked back to Daniel. He didn't need the sword anymore. He had already proven what it meant to be chosen. Weeks later, the galaxy began to shift. The syndicate fractured. Some factions rebelled. Others fled. Jack was invited to take control. He refused. He returned to the refugee cities, helped rebuild. Not as a king, not as a legend, just a man with his brother at his side and Thalna as his closest friend and guide. He traveled from world to world, fixing what the syndicate broke. Everywhere he went, children asked him, "Did the sword really choose you?" And Jack always smiled. "No," he'd say. "I chose to lift it because no one else would." Final line, and far away, buried in the stars, the sword slept once more, waiting for the next hand, the next heart, the next human.